thing that has really caused him, most headaches so far is not the Democrats breathing down his neck. I'm talking about Trump here. It is about MAGA faithful wanting to burn their MAGA hats because he's refused to do what he said he would do, which is to release all the files.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go back to that moment when he said he would release all the files, it was in the middle of an interview on Fox News during the election campaign last year. And if you watch it back, he immediately realized that he'd been caught in a trap, and he immediately tried to walk it back, even in that interview. He absolutely, for whatever reason, does not want those files to be released to the public. We've been through a fatuous series of events here where the Attorney General, his loyal Attorney General, she's not independent of him at all, the traditional independence of the Department of Justice, completely trashed by this president, said in February the files were on her desk. She was reviewing them ahead of their public release, and then fast forwarded to July, and the Department of Justice said there are no files to release. So this is a huge problem for him because his base wants to see what's in those files. They are natural believers in conspiracy theories, and you don't even have to be a conspiracy theorist to look at what's taking place here and think there is some kind of reason why Donald Trump doesn't want those files, and the Democrats, frankly, in some cases, don't want those files out there.
And of course, and these same people would say he's terribly good at distracting us from the lack of release of those files with all sorts of other stuff, including his announcement yesterday, quite astonishingly, I thought it was a hoax, first of all, that he would only accept 7,500 refugees to the United States, down from the 100,000 or so that are admitted every year, and they would have to be white South Africans. Tell us about that.
Yes, most of them would have to be white South Africans. But actually, if you read the text of this decision that was published in the Federal Register, it's actually even worse than that. It says reducing the numbers to 7,500 people. That's way down. In the last year of Joe Biden's administration, 125,000 people were granted refugee status in the United States. That was the cap. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, during lockdowns, Donald Trump allowed 11,000 refugees to travel and enter the United States. He's not only reducing the number, he's changing the entire patina of refugee policy in a country with the Statue of Liberty that has emblazoned on it that poem, bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. No more of that. And indeed, he says the admissions numbers shall primarily be allocated among Afrikaners from South Africa and other victims of illegal or unjust discrimination in their respective homelands. That is a complete narrowing of the definition of a refugee that will be welcome to the United States. It doesn't mean that you can be fleeing conflict or pestilence or famine. You've got to be fleeing illegal or unjust discrimination. And on the issue of these Afrikaners, he has been fed a completely false narrative that white Afrikaners are having their land expropriated by the South African government without compensation. That has never, in fact, happened. There is a new law in South Africa. It allows for that eventual one day maybe possibility. It has not happened once, but both the president and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, have claimed that it is happening, that there is what they say a genocide, they call a genocide in South Africa, that is being unreported by the world's media. This is complete falsehood driving now and completely shifting refugee policy. And in terms of the UK, and you think about the concerns that the Trump administration has expressed about free speech in the UK, you know, if you're going to allow refugees in who claim illegal or unjust discrimination, that there may be some applicants from Britain for refugee status in the United States going forward, and that could become a real tension in the relationship between the White House and Number 10.
Interesting. And also, it's worth pointing out that in that meeting that he had with Cyril Ramaphosa, the South African president, in the Oval Office, where Ramaphosa was expecting a shellacking on the lines of Zelensky, he set the president straight, as did South Africa's richest man, who was a white billionaire called Rupert. This guy, who's a friend of Trump, said, no, Mr. President, this is wrong. It has never happened. It's amazing that Trump has still held on to that belief, all these months later. And the final issue to discuss with you, Venezuela. It looks as if the Trump administration that says it doesn't like doing regime change really, really wants regime change in Venezuela. What are they doing to make us have that impression, and how serious is this going to get?
Well, as you know, their maritime campaign against alleged drug traffickers has continued. They keep blowing fast-moving boats out of the waters of the Caribbean and the Pacific, which they then claim, without furnishing any evidence whatsoever, are ferrying drugs to the United States. You have to take Secretary of War Pete Hegseth at face value, because they don't provide any backup evidence, nor indeed do they even provide a legal justification. They don't even pretend that they are acting within international law by killing people using drones as they travel in fast-moving boats in the waters of the Pacific. Now Donald Trump says that campaign is going to expand to land targets in Venezuela,
wow,
that airstrikes will soon begin on Venezuelan soil. The government of President Nicolás Maduro, accused by the Trump administration of being a drug trafficker, he denies it, will see that as an act of war by the newly renamed Department of War, but there is every sign that Donald Trump is intent on intensifying his action against those alleged drug traffickers and seeking to unseat Maduro. He was asked the other day whether the CIA had now been given authority as part of their covert actions that are taking place in Venezuela to unseat Maduro, and he wouldn't answer the question, obviously. But, it is important to note that under US law, you're not actually allowed, any president is not allowed to authorize the assassination of a political opponent or another foreign leader. So we're heading down deeply uncertain and potentially complicated pathways in Venezuela in the days ahead.